The circle of salt they had so carefully laid out was now scattered, the protective barrier breached. They stood in silence, the realization dawning on them that the entity they had invited into their world was not bound by the rules they had set. It played a different game, one with stakes higher than they could have imagined. The whispers grew louder, a chorus of voices from nowhere and everywhere, speaking in tongues long forgotten by time. The temperature plummeted, their breaths visible in the air as they huddled together, seeking comfort in the presence of one another. It was then that the lights flickered and went out, plunging them into a darkness so complete it felt as if the very light had been devoured. Panic began to set in, their earlier bravado replaced by a primal fear. In the darkness, the distance between them seemed to grow, each person an island adrift in a sea of black. They called out to each other, voices trembling, but their calls were swallowed by the silence that followed each cry. Then, in the pitch black, a single light appeared. It was not the comforting glow of a lamp or the steady beam of a flashlight, but the flicker of a candle, held in the hand of a figure that was both there and not there. It was Lily, or what Lily had become, her form flickering like a flame, casting long, twisted shadows on the walls. Her eyes, once painted smiles, were now deep, empty voids that seemed to stare into their very souls. Lily wants to play. The voice was not one, but many, a cacophony of whispers that filled the room, bouncing off the walls, enveloping them in sound. The game had changed. They were no longer the seekers, but the sought. The rules they had read from an old book, thinking them nothing more than a harmless ritual, had bound them to a fate they could not escape. One by one, they tried to flee, to find some way out of the nightmare they had summoned into their world. But the house, with its endless corridors and locked doors, seemed to reshape itself with every turn, trapping them inside. It was in this labyrinth that they found themselves separated, each isolated, their screams for help lost in the void. The realization hit them with the weight of the night. To end the game, they needed to confront the spirit they had awakened, to close the circle they had so carelessly opened. But how do you confront something that exists in the shadows, something that feeds on fear and moves through the darkness with the ease of a whisper? The answer lay within the very fabric of the game, in understanding the nature of the entity they had summoned. It was not just about finding Lily. It was about understanding what Lily had become, a bridge between worlds, a vessel for something ancient and hungry. The night wore on, the moon traversing the sky, casting its silver light through the windows, the only witness to the drama unfolding within. The friends, driven by desperation, began to piece together the fragments of lore and ritual, searching for a way to reverse what they had done. As the first light of dawn began to seep through the curtains, a fragile hope emerged. They realized that to banish the spirit, they must reclaim their agency in the game, to seek not just survival, but to confront the entity, to offer it a path back to the darkness from which it came. The game was not over. It had merely transformed into a battle of wills, a test of courage against the backdrop of an ancient rite gone awry. And as the light grew stronger, so too did their resolve to end the game, to seal the breach they had opened, and to face whatever came from the shadows with a unity that had been forged in the heart of darkness. The conclusion of their ordeal was yet to be written, a final chapter that hung in the balance, teetering between the world of the living and the realm of shadows. The end was not yet in sight, but the path forward was clear, leading them toward a confrontation with forces beyond their understanding, a final stand in the dim light of a new day. As dawn painted the sky with streaks of orange and pink, the house seemed to awaken from its malevolent slumber, the oppressive atmosphere lifting slightly, offering a glimmer of hope to the beleaguered friends. They gathered in the main hall, their faces pale and drawn, but united by a newfound determination. They understood now that the game they had initiated, fueled by curiosity and the reckless thrill of the forbidden, had consequences far beyond their imagination. Armed with their resolve and the scant knowledge gleaned from ancient texts and their own harrowing experiences, they prepared to confront the entity they had unwittingly unleashed. The plan was simple, yet fraught with peril. They would recreate the ritual, not as participants in a game, but as masters of the ceremony, reversing the roles that had given the entity its power over them. The first rays of sunlight filtered through the windows, casting the room in a soft, ethereal glow. It was in this light that they saw Lily again, the doll no longer an object of innocent play, but the embodiment of their nightmare. Yet in the clarity of dawn, she appeared less menacing, a key to ending the torment they had endured. With hands joined in a circle of salt anew, they began the incantation, their voices steady, each word a defiance against the darkness. The air around them grew charged, a silent storm brewing as the entity, sensing its hold weakening, fought back with a ferocity that threatened to tear the very foundations of the house asunder. Whispers turned to screams, shadows to specters, as the veil between worlds thinned, the entity drawing upon its ancient power. But in the heart of this chaos, there was a moment of perfect clarity. The friends realized that the entity, in its arrogance, had underestimated the strength of human spirit, the power of unity born of friendship and love. In the final moments of the ritual, as the sun crested the horizon, a blinding light filled the room. It was not the light of day, but something purer, a radiant force that enveloped everything, leaving no shadow in which the entity could hide. The friends, their voices merging into one, completed the incantation, sealing the breach they had opened. The light receded as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the house in serene silence. The entity, bound once again to the darkness from whence it came, was gone. Lily, the doll, lay inert, her role as the conduit for the entity over. Exhausted but elated, the friends embraced, their ordeal at an end. The house, freed from the entity's grip, seemed just an old building once more, its sinister presence replaced by a peaceful quietude. As they left the house, stepping out into the light of a new day, they knew they had been changed by their experience. They had faced their deepest fears, not with weapons or spells, but with the strength of their bond and the courage to stand together against the darkness. The game was over, but the story of that night would live on, a testament to the power of the human spirit to overcome even the darkest of forces. And as they walked away from the house on Elm Street, they didn't look back. Ahead of them lay the rest of their lives, bright with the promise of a new day. Thank you for listening to this story on my channel.